Another day, another set of emails exposing Epstein's relationship to members of the royal family. This time, William is involved? Not quite. He was the ambassador of a charity that accepted donations from Epstein, but it shows a very clear lack in judgment on everyone on his team and in the royal household that they did not do their due diligence. He is named in the emails, and his relationship to the charity Wild Aid, as well as their relationship to Epstein, is being called into question. And then we have Sarah Ferguson. Can you believe that there are more incriminating emails? I say incriminating, but really that's just on behalf of her being a horrible mom and a very questionable human being. Some of the emails are outright adoration towards Epstein, in which she asks him to marry her. These emails are desperate. She sounds deranged, and she even mentioned that the royal family doesn't let women leave without their heads. No surprise there, as we often talk about how the royal family treats women. But then we also have Andrew and his and Sarah's reliance on their daughters to build their relationship with Epstein. And then, of course, other predators included in that, Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein. There's so much to grapple with. Feminagra has the story and the emails and pictures. Let's get into it. Thank you for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing more emails from the Epstein files that further show the relationship between Epstein, Andrew, and Sarah Ferguson, and even some that implicate William and a charity he was the ambassador for accepting donations from Epstein. There's a lot to get into, but before we do, if you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share so that more people can find us. Today, we'll be pulling information from Feminagra in an article titled Prince William Named in Epstein Files as Charity Funding Questions Grow. It goes on to say documents show that Jeffrey Epstein donated $50,000 to the wildlife charity Wild Aid in November of 2013 through his Enhanced Education Foundation, years after his 2008 conviction. The timing is important because Wild Aid named William as an ambassador in 2013 and promoted its work through celebrity-driven campaigns. Wild Aid's own correspondence then tied Epstein's generous support to its campaigning push, even as it circulated links to publicity that included senior royals and other high-profile figures. The emails are significant because they show how Wild Aid framed the relationship after the money arrived. In February of 2014, Wild Aid's managing director emailed Epstein's office with thanks for his support and referenced the launch of new rhino horn public service announcements in London. The same chain of outreach encouraged Epstein's team to share coverage that included an extract from a speech by King Charles, then Prince of Wales, praising the charity's work. Wild Aid can argue it ran a broad campaign operation. However, the emails show something more pointed. Staff treated Epstein as a donor worth flattering and publicly associating with campaign momentum. Wild Aid has tried to narrow the reputational damage by separating the donation from William's filmed participation. The charity said the videos featuring William alongside David Beckham and Yao Ming were funded earlier in 2013 before Epstein's donation, and that his contribution did not fund William's participation. That detail limits one line of criticism. It does not solve the main one. Wild Aid still accepted money from a convicted sex offender, then used donor language that linked his support to campaign activity that traded heavily on royal involvement. The issue did not end with the donation. Reports show that in 2014, Wild Aid continued to reach out to Jeffrey Epstein and tried to set up meetings with senior charity figures, including its co-founder and executive director in New York. Later emails even invited him to a private dinner with charity leadership and a celebrity supporter. Wild Aid has since said no meetings ever happened and that no staff member met Epstein or his team. Okay, while that's fair, that sounds like that was more of a challenge on Epstein's side because you were extending the invitation, you were creating the correspondence, you were sending out the invites. So the reason y'all didn't meet up wasn't on your behalf, it was on his. So don't try to pull some kind of morality-based response and say, oh, well, we never met, so it's fine. No, but you wanted to. The reason you never met is because he wasn't able to. The problem is still there. The problem still exists. Even so, the emails show clear intent. The charity did not keep its distance. It treated him like a donor worth building a relationship with. That decision raises a simple question about basic checks. Epstein's conviction and his links to Andrew were already widely reported by then, with Andrew facing ongoing reputational damage. The risk was not hidden. WildAid has said the donation was unsolicited and listed in its public accounts, but listing a payment is not the same as making a careful choice. A charity can follow paperwork rules and still expose its ambassadors to avoidable controversy if it fails to screen donors properly. Kensington Palace also chose a narrow response. Officials said the correspondence was a matter for WildAid and declined to say whether any donor checks were carried out. That stance shifts responsibility away from the royal household, even though the charity often highlighted royal involvement to boost its profile. When public figures lend their names to campaigns, people expect stronger safeguards, not silence after the fact. This pattern is not new. In June of 2025, a leaked email showed that Filipino-Swiss art patron Minerva Mondigier Steiner, listed as a sponsor of the royal charity Polo Cup in Windsor, offered wealthy clients a private audience with Prince William for £20,000. When the Sunday Times reported the offer, and Kensington Palace cut ties within hours, saying William did not support paid access. The swift reaction helped contain the fallout, but it also revealed how weak controls around access and fundraising can create problems that only surface once the media uncovers them. The WildAid emails point to a wider problem about how charities linked to senior royals handle money and access. Environmental campaigns connected to the monarchy often rely on wealthy donors and sponsors to expand their reach. That support can help a cause grow, but it also brings risk when background checks are unclear or when controversial names appear in financial records. When large documents releases become public, attention rarely stays on one payment. People start examining timelines, relationships, and whether anyone paused to question the source of the funds before accepting them. And I feel like that's the bare minimum. But that's not all. This article went on to say, at the same time, a 2011 internal email now in the public record shows associates discussing a British reporter who was actively seeking information about Jeffrey Epstein and mentioning Prince William by name. This is back in 2011. The exchange suggests that journalists were already probing potential royal links years before the charity donation ever surfaced. It also shows William's name appearing in Epstein-related correspondence years before the donation issue surfaced. The palace's earlier refusal to comment resurfaced, only deepening questions about oversight and awareness rather than closing them. There's a lot to take in here. But clearly a lot more was known than they would want us to believe, especially with them questioning a British, let me make sure I note that, a British reporter back in 2011 linking William and Epstein. That is so strange. Now, again, I believe this is all through WildAid, but at the same time, who's doing the checks over there? Like, who's vetting the people that could get close to the royals? It's making a lot more sense. It made sense from before because birds of a feather flock together, but it makes a lot more sense why William and Kate had no problem living next to Andrew and wanted to make sure we knew it. They wanted that alignment to be known. They leaked to their royal sources, or they leaked to their sources, that they were fine living next to Andrew and actually preferred him and his company over Harry and Meghan's well after we fully knew and understood what Andrew had been up to. And now we're seeing even a charity that William worked with, WildAid, accepted a donation from Epstein in 2013, worked with William in 2014, and all of this is well after Epstein had been convicted as a sex offender in 2008. All of that is public record. It would have taken a simple Google search or a phone call or an email to find out, who is this guy? What do I need to know about him? Is this someone we want as a donor? Even after the donation, they were still inviting this man to dinners and sending him invitations and offering him all kinds of red carpet treatment. I find that to be interesting. And then 3 years prior, a British reporter is probing into Epstein and William, mentioning them both by name. I feel like a lot more is going to come out soon. I'm really curious about all of this. So y'all let me know, what are your thoughts? I'm going to continue the article. It ends by saying other correspondence adds to the uneasy picture rather than clearing it up. One 2011 message shows Epstein claiming that the palace had asked him about pursuing a possible lawsuit during the phone hacking scandal. No officials were named, and no evidence accompanied the claim, yet the email shows how often Epstein invoked royal proximity in his communications. Even without confirmation, repeated references like these keep the royal association alive in the public mind. My goodness. That is a lot to process. Y'all, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm so curious what you think about this. More emails were released exposing even more of Sarah Ferguson and Jeffrey Epstein's relationship, and she is anxious to say the least. This woman sounded desperate, enthralled, obsessed. At one point, she even said, "Marry me?" to Jeffrey Epstein. And again, I just want to reiterate, this was years after his conviction for being a sex offender. I don't know what to say about Sarah Ferguson. I'm going to save my thoughts to the end, and I'm going to do my best not to interrupt this article with my outrage. Y'all, cross your fingers. Let's see if I can get through this. The title of this article is "No Woman Leaves with Her Head, the message that dragged Sarah Ferguson back into the Epstein fallout." Now, this article was written by Miss Historian. It says, several emails show Sarah Ferguson portraying herself as deeply distressed and isolated, using language that reads less like formal correspondence and more like a personal crisis preserved in writing. In one 2010 message, she thanked Jeffrey Epstein for letting her stay at a second property while warning that the British press was ready to exterminate her and that they were 1000% hanging her out to dry. She wrote that she was totally on her own and feared public obliteration, presenting herself as abandoned by both the palace and institutions she once relied on. I don't know why institutions just made light work of me. We just gonna keep going. That tone appears again in another exchange where she leaned heavily on Epstein for reassurance. In a separate January 2010 email, she praised him as a legend, and that is in quotes, thanked him for his generosity, and ended with the striking line, "I am at your service, just marry me." Oh, I am cringing so bad right now. If you have ever seen the bitter beer face, think of that times 10. This is why I don't talk about this topic on camera, because I've been making some horrible faces and getting riled up and angry. And at this point, I have to keep rubbing my temples and my eyes, and it just doesn't make sense to put makeup on. So I decided to be off camera to talk about this because these people are infuriating me. Girls, stand up. You want to marry a pedophile? Oh, wait, hold on. She already did. This is just par for the course for Miss Ferguson. She's okay with it. Okay, duh, Sharion. Another message referred to him as her pillar, reinforcing the sense of emotional dependence at a time when his criminal history was already public knowledge. Y'all, let me read this first email to y'all. This is from Sarah Ferguson to Jeffrey Epstein on July 14th, 2010. This is 2 years after this man was charged as a sex offender. She says, "Dear Jeffrey, yes, I did need a second place for a week, and I thank you so much. But just as I predicted many months ago, the British press is ready to exterminate me. And it seems that PricewaterhouseCoopers and the palace system are not equipped to deal with all of this huge wave of negativity. Therefore, I have to return to the UK and be exterminated and face the thunderous music. I am now 1000% being hung out to dry, just as I predicted. You will see. The press will have me exiled. I am totally on my own now. This is beyond scandalous and nobody can do anything. I cannot believe what this is all coming to. I have to return to face my judge and jury and be hung yet again. Just as I always said, no woman has ever left the royal family with her head, and they cannot behead me. Therefore, they will discredit me totally to obliteration. I have no words. This email and any files transmitted with it are confidential." Oh, wait, the font didn't change. So anyway, lower in the thread, it also says, "Have you died on me? Don't. Please, you are my pillar." If you look at, and I have it on your screen now, if you look at their correspondence, you would not know that they were talking to each other if this wasn't in a thread. And the reason I say that is because her responses are so desperate and dramatic and long-winded. And she has all these things to say and all this, she called it thunderous, thunderous music. But hell, this is thunderous praise. It's just coming at him left and right, front and center, up and down, in and out. Just, oh my God, I love you so much. It's so dramatic and it's disgusting. Even if these were both normal, sane, healthy lovers, this would be an excess. I've seen vows that were less obsessed. But then you look at his correspondence and it's just one sentence. He don't even bother to put a subject line. He's just like, oh, hey, Sarah, what girl? Like, this is so incongruent. I'm not really sure what her issue is. Now, I do know, and I don't know this, but I have heard for many, many years that the royals rely on their relationships to have spending money because their money is tied up essentially, and it's controlled within the firm. So they don't have a whole lot of walking around money, if you know what I mean. So they cozy up to a lot of very rich people and other elites to try to get a little something in their pocket. That was the big relationship draw. They were symbiotic between Andrew and Epstein. Epstein wanted clout in the UK along with Ghislaine Maxwell. He wanted more high profile figures to blackmail, and Andrew needed money and he needed access. And Epstein was the avenue for that because Andrew doesn't have a whole lot of money, which is why his mother paid a settlement, allegedly. So anyway, it makes sense why Sarah would want to keep this relationship. And clearly Epstein was lending her homes and who knows what else and what she was doing in return. She certainly can't pay him. So I wonder what she was doing in return for his generosity. That's an interesting question on my mind. Y'all let me know. What do you think? And then we're going to move over to the next email. And then in another email from January 30th, 2010, she says, "You are a legend. I really don't have the words to describe my love, gratitude for your generosity and kindness. I am at your service. Just marry me." Y'all, what could he have possibly done or said to help the woman that she would have to be saying all that? And again, I just want to reiterate, this is 2 years after he was a convicted sex offender. Also, this is after she allegedly took her daughters to greet him after he got out of jail. She does not allegedly have money to pay him for his generosity. I wonder what their dealings were that made them so intertwined that she felt all of these feelings of adoration and desperation and obsession for him, and he was so generous to her. He didn't really seem particularly fond of her based on their email correspondence. He seemed like he was more so tolerating a pest. But what could she have done to repay his kindness and generosity? Like, I'm just so curious about their relationship. Now, I do get his and Andrew's, but now I'm curious about this one. What do y'all think? Financial strain runs consistently through the correspondence. References to employment, offers to organize properties, and repeated expressions of gratitude for assistance suggests a search for stability rather than distant friendships. Separate emails show travel expenses being covered by Epstein's office, reinforcing the impression of material reliance. Associates privately described her finances as disordered, adding another layer of vulnerability to the public record and raising questions about judgment. These disclosures resurfaced alongside memories of earlier controversies involving access, money, and public embarrassment. The cumulative effect is the portrait of a Duchess navigating debt and reputational damage while maintaining contact with a financier whose criminal history was already well known. Each new document weakened claims of independence and suggested that privilege did not shield the York household from financial mismanagement or poor decision-making. The latest emails have eroded much of the sympathy Sarah Ferguson may have once attracted and undermined suggestions that she was coerced or blackmailed by Epstein. The correspondence instead shows familiarity and voluntary contact, including the now criticized remark about her daughter being on a shagging weekend, language many found jarring given Epstein's known convictions for sexual offenses involving minors. That is an added layer and probably the most important aspect of that. But then on the other side, I'm shocked. I'm honestly befuddled at a mother who would openly converse about her daughter's sex life. Why are you housing thoughts like that and sharing them? You're so comfortable, you're sharing them. In earlier years, criticism focused largely on Andrew and Sarah, while the wider royal family at times appeared willing to rehabilitate them and shield their daughters from sustained scrutiny. Now, public perception has broadened to include the entire York family and, to some extent, the working royals, driven by questions of tone, association, and timing, as well as debate over how much senior figures may have known. That is my question. The visibility of financial favors and the inclusion of family members in the exchanges widened the fallout significantly. In public memory, language and optics often outlast legal findings, and the correspondence continues to influence how the York name is viewed long after the messages were sent. There is something so interesting about the way Andrew and Sarah work, how they operate as individuals. I don't know about them as a couple, but as individuals, they are both just really disgusting people, just morally eroded people. I don't have enough negative words for them because it's very clear what they were up to, but the more that comes out, it just seems to get worse. Now, something I will say, and I want to be very clear about this. This is simply me observing the situation far from the outside, looking in and just asking, what are your thoughts on this? There seem to be a lot of overlapping lines that seem to be drawing nearer and nearer and nearer to the point of nearly touching. And I'm wondering where that intersection will be between all of those unrelated at the moment connections that might connect at some point. I have already asked several questions about Princess Eugenie's motivation to working in the anti-sex trafficking space. As we know, she has the anti-slavery coalition, or anti-slavery collaborative, with a friend of hers from college, and they work to end slavery of all kinds, human exploitation of all kinds. That includes sex slaves, domestic servitude, etc. I mean, they are doing great work. They also have the Floodlight podcast, and I've recapped several of their interviews and episodes. But we do know that she felt compelled many years ago to work in the anti-sex trafficking space for her father to not only be a participant in sex trafficking, and it is widely known now, but then also to be her mother and her father to be very close friends with what now might be one of the most well-known and infamous sex traffickers of all time, running a ring that spans decades that seems to involve damn near all of the world's elites. I mean, my goodness, the more that comes out, the more I'm like, shit, are any of y'all not on this list? Are any of y'all not involved with this? My goodness, I don't trust anybody at this point. So for her father to be that heavily involved, and now to know that her mother was that heavily involved with that man, it calls into question, what was her initial motivation? What did she see? What did she hear? What did she know? How was she exposed to any of this? And we do know there was some, at this moment, limited exposure. We do know that Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell were present at Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday party. That in and of itself says a lot. It is rumored that Sarah Ferguson took Eugenie and Beatrice to see Jeffrey Epstein when he got out of jail for his 2008 sex offender conviction, She knew why he had been in jail, and she still took her daughters. Okay. So we do know they've had at least some limited exposure. I am so curious as to why she felt the need to go into that space. And hopefully whatever all of this might bring up for her, I hope that she has the support and care and love that she needs, because it does seem like there might be more information coming down the line. And I'm just mentally preparing myself for what I hope is not the inevitable, but feels like the inevitable. Not to mention, most people, even the worst of the worst of all species, there are some horrible people, there are some horrible animals, there are some horrible spirits out there in the world. But most people draw the line at their kids. They will go out and do some terrible things. They will harm you. They will sacrifice themselves. They will be the worst of the worst, etc. But when it comes to their kids, they will give them the world. They will protect them with everything they have, and they will give them their last breath. Most people draw the line when it comes to their kids. Most people, they will listen to your BS. They will lean into your manipulation. They'll be down for whatever you want to do. But the moment you say anything that implies that their kids are in danger, they're about to chop your head off, as they should. That energy is not present here. Not only do these parents not seem inclined to protect their daughters, they almost seem like they're feeding them to the lion's den. Does it not feel that way? Does it not feel like they're both serving their daughters up on a platter? Whatever that means is what it means. Because it seems like Sarah used possibly Eugenie's quote shagging weekend. I feel bad even just keep saying that. That's so embarrassing for her, if not more. That's probably very hurtful to find out your nasty ass mama was talking about you like that. Ugh, Sarah, shame on you, whore. Anyway, she was sitting there talking about her daughter's sex weekend. If that's even what it was, they could have went to the aquarium. You don't know. Just because you are clearly some kind of nymphomaniac doesn't mean your children are. Now, she was 18, 19 years old, off with a boyfriend. Who knows? They could have been going and having a good time doing anything else. They could have been at museums. You don't know that. Now, I'm just going to assume that because we're just going to move on because that's none of our business. Sarah. See how I just did that? That's none of my business. See how I moved on, Sarah? And she's not even my daughter. Anyway. But she was happy to involve potential conversations about Princess Eugenie's sex life as a teenage girl to this man. They clearly, Andrew and Sarah, probably invited all these people to Beatrice's 18th birthday. She took her daughters to see him, see Epstein when he got out of jail for being a convicted sex offender. And then Andrew leaned on his daughters for an alibi. When he was questioned about his goings-on with Virginia Giuffre, he said he took his daughters to the pizza shop. Now, if you have been invested in any capacity to these emails and all this information coming out about Epstein, I'm pretty sure when you heard pizza shop, all the hairs on the back of your neck stood up. I'm wondering what exactly he meant by that. And I wish at the time we had the information that we have now, because I would have loved a probing question into, when you say pizza shop, can you describe what you're talking about in detail, please? Because everything don't seem like it is as it seems. It seemed like there's more to the story. It seems like he was being quite overt with that statement now that I look back on it with what I know now. Not only that, but he involved his children in the alibi. Most people want to distance their kids from all their BS, no matter what. This man was using them, putting them front and center to protect himself. He and his brother have that in common. Charles used his sons as meat shields, and here we got Andrew using his daughters as meat shields. Anything to keep the press off me. Ugh, that family is disgusting. I don't understand how some people even survived there. When I tell you, it seems like every last one of the people in that family, with the exception of two and their two beautiful children, everybody else just seems to be the pits of hell. I mean, when you start involving charity with your nastiness and your nymphomania and your trafficking, I have to question you already, but I'm going to have to question you again, doubly so, knowing that you're willing to go that far. But it seems like the Yorks, the Duke and Duchess of York, oh no, they're not the Duke. Well, we can't call them that anymore, thank goodness. But Sarah and Andrew seem to be determined to involve their daughters. And I will say this, unrelated, not making an accusation, just an acknowledgement. Again, these layers and layers and layers of non-intersecting, but clearly overlapping in facts and information that I just happen to have stored from different things. But I remember Virginia Giuffre saying some of the people involved in Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking ring would also provide their kids into the situation to other people. So there's that. And I can't get that out of the back of my mind, that some of these people were offering their children to Jeffrey Epstein's activities, and then read the emails that I've read, and then listen to the sit down interview that I listened to, and put it all together, and then look at the line of work that Sarah and Andrew's daughter chose to go into. And I just pray that she is covered. I can't imagine the conditioning that she's having to unravel right now. But again, and I'm just saying the conditioning, clearly there's something there that's taught her to not publicly denounce her family. You know, we know she's in the royal family, never complain, never explain. So maybe that's it. That also needs to be unlearned. But God, I hope that's all. I also am noticing that both of them, Beatrice and Eugenie, just seem so damn desensitized to abusive men. Again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but Eugenie was on that private plane with Jeremy Clarkson well after he publicly abused Meghan. And then we saw Beatrice and Eugenie at the pub with a very pregnant Eugenie at the time, hugging all up on Piers Morgan. Now, to be fair, Eugenie did not hug Piers Morgan, and she left quite rapidly after arriving. And it seemed like she kind of left in a huff. Her sister didn't even walk her out. I've always felt, and I don't know this, she could have just had to go to the bathroom. You don't know. But in the back of my mind, I always felt like she left because she wasn't aware of who all was going to be there. She didn't seem like she left on the best of terms, because then later we see everybody else leave, and we see Beatrice making it a point to hug Piers Morgan repeatedly all over Piers Morgan in front of cameras. And the reason that's a problem is because he has been publicly abusing Meghan for years. So they seem desensitized to the proclivities of very nasty, mean-spirited men. I just hope they unlearn whatever conditioning has taught them that is okay, and it is okay to be in proximity to that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to call other men out when you're still cool with your daddy who was raping people. So a lot needs to be unlearned for everybody in that family, and I wish them all, not them all, I wish those two girls the best in unlearning whatever conditioning that they have been inundated with. But what are y'all's thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching the SharionSade YouTube channel. I appreciate you watching my content. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like this video by hitting the thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. And don't forget to comment along the way. If you feel so inclined, please don't forget to share so that more people can find us. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Now let's get back to the video. That's all I have for y'all today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'm looking forward to reading your comments in the comment section below, so feel free to let me know your thoughts. If you haven't already, please don't forget to go ahead and like, subscribe, and share, and I will see y'all tomorrow in our live stream. Bye!